Hello, middle schoolers. My name is Miss Christine from Grace Lutheran Ministries, and thank you so much for joining me today. I have been praying for you guys. We're in the second week of our series on change called Rooted. Last week we talked about how we're all going to experience good and bad changes in our lives. It's unavoidable. But just like trees can stand firm when they're rooted into the ground, we can stand firm no matter what changes life brings us because we're rooted in God. How? Because God never ever changes. Before we get into what we're going to talk about today, I want to tell you a quick story, because of course I do. Back when I was in college, I ended up visiting a friend's house for Easter break. We had Good Friday and Easter Monday off, so it was 4 days without school, which was enough time to go somewhere, but not really worth going all the way back to Illinois since I was going to school in Nebraska. So I ended up going to my roommate's house in Kansas. Her parents were super sweet and nice, and they had a huge and very fancy house. At least it felt huge and fancy. Every part of the place was decorated and clean and, well, it was just way nicer than I was used to. The night I showed up, they walked me to the guest bedroom with a queen-size bed and a heated blanket, and I knew it was going to be an awesome 4 days. I did my nighttime routine, grabbed a cup of water, and I went to sleep. But the next morning, I woke up, and to my horror, there was a giant water ring where I had left my glass of water the night before. And usually, I don't care about those things that much, ask my mom, but I could tell that this was a really expensive nightstand made of real fancy wood, and I just marred it probably forever. I tried to scratch it off and wash it off as quickly as possible, but nothing I did worked. I Googled how to get water rings off of wood furniture, and I tried a bunch of online hacks like olive oil and iron and all these different things, but nothing worked. I was trying as fast as possible to fix it, but it was ruined. Finally, and I'm ashamed to admit this, I just moved the Kleenex box over the water ring, and I prayed that they wouldn't find out until after I left. I still don't know if they got that water ring out or if it's still on the nightstand. All I know is that I felt and do feel pretty guilty about it, and all I wanted was to be able to wave a magic wand and fix that nightstand. So even if you've never broken or ruined something like the way that I did, you probably know what it feels like to wish things could just be fixed. In a way, I think change feels a lot like that sometimes. When something changes in a way that we don't want it to, it feels a lot like something has been ruined in our lives. And when that happens, often the first thing we try to do is fix it. We want to be in control. We want things to go back to the way they were. Does that sound familiar? However, the bad news is a lot of times that isn't possible. Sometimes change means that whatever it is that's broken simply can't be fixed. And that can leave us feeling sad, angry, frustrated, or even helpless. Maybe for you it was a breakup with your boyfriend or girlfriend, and no matter how much you wanted to get back together, you knew it just wasn't going to happen. Or maybe your parents separated, and you hoped that they would work it out and fix their relationship, but they ended up getting divorced instead. Maybe you used to be the star player on your team, but this year someone else took the starting spot, and there's nothing you can do to get it back. You can't change the fact that you moved to a new house. You can't change the fact that you have to go to a new school. You can't change the fact that you failed that test. You definitely can't change the fact that so many things during this global health crisis have been taken away from you. You can't fix the changes that make your life feel a bit broken right now. When you're going through changes like that, sometimes it feels like the end of the story, like there's no hope. Maybe you've even wondered why God hasn't come in to fix what feels broken. Where you wished there was a next chapter, God closed the book. Where you wished there was a comma, God put a period on the end of that sentence. And instead of feeling rooted and safe, you feel frustrated and disappointed with a change that's so permanent in your life. You might even feel like you aren't rooted securely in God anymore. If you've ever felt like that, or you're feeling like that now, just know that you're not the only one. Almost every person that has ever experienced a difficult or painful change in their lives have thought the same things. That's why it's important for us to know that while God hasn't promised to change everything the way he wants him to, he has promised us something else, something that's even better. And when we know what that promise is and what it means for our lives, it'll be easier to stay rooted in him, even when he doesn't fix the things that we see are broken. He promises us something better than things to always stay the same. See, in the Old Testament, which is a collection of books in the Bible written before Jesus came to earth, there's one main storyline that goes through almost all of those books. It's the storyline of God's relationship with the children of Israel. Through a man named Abraham, God created the nation, or group of people of Israel, in an area of the world that we now call the Middle East. It was through that group of people that God would one day send the world his son Jesus. So the nation of Israel was a really big deal to God. They were a part of his plan to free and save the whole world through Jesus. But this group of people had a problem, pretty big problem. They kept breaking things, mainly their relationship with God, which is a lot more important than ruining a nightstand. Even though God chose them for a really important thing, they still got caught up doing really selfish things that not only got them into trouble, but also went against God's plan for them. In fact, other nations would come, take them over, and even capture them. This happened over and over and over again. And every time they got into trouble, guess what they did? They did what we all probably would do. They asked God to fix it. Sometimes he did, and sometimes he didn't. But no matter what God did with the changes the nation of Israel was experiencing, he did promise them something they could hold on to. And it's the same thing we can hold on to, because he promises it to us as well. He said, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. That's from Isaiah chapter 43, verse 2. Now, one thing we can't skip over, even though we might want to, is the way that it's worded. When you pass through the waters, when you pass through the rivers, when you walk through the fire. In other words, things are going to change. You will find yourself in a difficult time. That's a guarantee. It's not a matter of if you do, but when you do. Many of us find ourselves in a difficult time right now. But what does God promise us when those things happen? He promises us that he will be with us, that he always has been and he always will be. Now, I don't know if that's the type of promise you were hoping for from God. Honestly, sometimes I kind of wish God would have said something else too. Maybe something like, no matter how hurt you are, or no matter how terrible your situation is, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to make things go back to the way they were, and it will all be great. But that's not what he said. That's not what God said, and that's not what he promises. And that makes me think maybe God knows something that we don't. Maybe he knows that more than we need things to be fixed, we need to know that he is with us. And I think that's actually good news, because if change is going to happen, I want to know that God, who never changes, is going to be with me when it does. And that's what I want you to remember today. God is with you. No matter what you're going through, no matter what's happening at home, no matter how hurt you feel over what your friends did to you, no matter how sad you are because life will never go back to the way it was, God is with you. And if you think about it, that really is an amazing promise. Because when I'm hurting from the changes life has brought me, the last thing I want to feel is alone. I want to know someone is going to be with me. Sometimes just knowing someone is there for you can make you feel a lot better. And when that someone is God, who is bigger than anything else that's happening around us, well, that's the best feeling in the world. You see, I think that God's presence with us really is the answer we need. When God fulfilled his promise and sent Jesus into the world through the nation of Israel, one of Jesus' names was Emmanuel, which means God is with us. God wanted us to know that Jesus' life on earth was direct proof that God is with us all of the time, no matter what. During his ministry on earth, Jesus said something similar to God's promise in Isaiah. This is what he said. He said, "I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world." And that's from John chapter 16, verse 33. Jesus didn't shy away from the fact that we'll face troubling changes in this life. We're facing one right now. But he told us to take heart, to have courage and remain strong, to remain rooted during them because he has overcome the world. In other words, we can stay rooted in the fact that there is no change or trouble so big that God can't take care of it for us. He's made the promise to never leave us or to forsake us. He's made the promise to be with us. And when we're rooted in that truth, that promise, we can find the courage to face any difficult challenge or difficult circumstance. So, what does it mean for us to do as Jesus said when he said to take heart in the midst of change? What does it mean to stay rooted in the promise that God is with us no matter what? Well, I think it means making a decision. And I'm an indecisive person, so this is kind of hard for me. But first, you have to choose to make a decision. You have to choose to make a decision to trust God in the middle of a difficult situation. You have to trust that this situation didn't take God by surprise. You have to trust that God is with you. And then you have to make one more decision. The decision to change your perspective. Choose to believe that God's promise of being with you is bigger and better than anything else he could do for you. Choose to believe that his presence will help you and get you through whatever it is that you're going through right now. Choose to believe that his presence can keep you rooted through whatever changes that you're facing. Remember, God is with you, and that is a promise that can carry you through any seemingly broken situation in your life. Remember that I'm rooting for you and that Jesus loves you. I hope you have a great week.